Welcome to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jen Amos, and I'm really excited, as I always am when I do this show, because I get to interview another entrepreneur or small business owner in our global community, really. And so today I have with me Jordan West, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Mindful Marketing and also a clothing brand, Little and Lively. You can learn more about him and his marketing company at mindfulmarketing.co. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, I feel I've already enjoyed our conversation offline. And so I know that we're going to have a fun conversation online.
Yes, for sure. And it's two podcast hosts talking, which is always good, right?
Yeah, that's always, I almost feel like it's a sense of relief. It's like, okay, I don't have to initiate it. Like they already know, they'll talk, like I'll talk. Like, it's not this whole like nerve-wracking thing. It's like, let's just have a real conversation now that we got all of that, all the nerves out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Jordan, I like to ask this question as an icebreaker question because, as you know, these recent times have been quite interesting. And so I thought I'd check in with you. How are you doing?
To be honest, so we're actually in Canada and I think things are a lot different up here in Canada than they are in the States right now. And so everything's pretty much business as usual here.
The only
difference is that yeah, it's good. I mean, though our numbers are spiking where we are right now. And that's the first time since COVID has come around that we've actually had numbers like this. So they're starting to clamp down again, but our kids are all in school. Restaurants are open and business just seems normal. So I don't know. I think we're just super, super fortunate of where we happen to be right now.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. My husband and I, we live in the States and in Virginia, and it's interesting because I have friends, most of my friends are in California. That's where I'm from. And it's just so different because I feel like for us, we live in a bubble. Like ever since this all started, and we live near the beach, we still see people cycling without masks, just walking their dogs, just like a regular day at the beach. And so it's, I'd like to say too, and because we work from home, we don't have to go out to public places as often. Now, don't get me wrong, I've definitely gotten a little stir crazy and we've had to go out and we actually went on vacation in the mountains recently, which was really nice. But other than that, I at least am counting my blessings as well, and knowing that we're in a place that hasn't really impacted our business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much to be thankful for right now, comparatively to around the world. So either way, it's a crazy time.
Yeah,
and I think it really affects all of us, right? Like I heard somebody say recently, like normally on a stress level, you're at about a 50%. So you've got that extra like 50% capacity. Whereas like all of us now are more at that like 90 to 95%. So if you're snapping or whatever that is, it's sometimes it's not like, it gives you permission to do that, but it's like, oh, okay, I'm actually like, there's all of this like other underlying stress
right
in our lives right now, whether it's financial or just in general, right? It's just, this is a weird world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, it's a weird world and we don't know if it's going to shift anytime soon. But until then, I'm just so glad to hear that you and your family are doing really well and as well as your company.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, things are great.
Good. Well, speaking of which, for people that are hearing about mindful marketing for the first time, why don't you let us know what your company is about?
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks so much. Actually what I normally talk about on podcasts is our clothing company, because I think that our clothing company actually is a great segue into our marketing agency. So
sure. Yeah, please.
We started our clothing company about 6 years ago. Just started as a little at-home operation. At the time, I was kind of reeling from trying to sell a restaurant that I owned. So I had lost a lot of money, and at the time, it was a lot of money for me. It was about $150,000. It was 5 years of my time.
Wow.
All of this stuff, and we started this clothing company, and it was just this little tiny at-home operation. My wife was a fashion designer, so she knew what she was doing, and she knew how to make really nice clothing. And so we started to test out Facebook ads and realized like, oh my gosh, we're selling out of everything. And so from there, and at that time, I think we were getting something like, I've looked back and it's something like a 90 return on ad spend. So like every dollar in, we were getting like 90 out, which is like just insane. And so from there, we actually built a whole business. So fast forward till now, we're like a mid 7-figure company. We still do a lot of paid advertising, but we really try to use our paid advertising to get people off. Get people off of paid advertising and into our lists and all of that sort of stuff. So the interesting thing throughout all of this is that my wife and I realized, like, it's probably not great us co-running this company together. For any, spouses who run companies together, there needs to be one person leading. And for me, that wasn't me on that side. And so I was really good at marketing, terrible at operations. And so I got a friend, who I thought would be great on the marketing side. And I'm like, hey, I got all these clients that are now coming to me. Do you want to work with me on this? And that was about 3 years ago now.
Wow.
And and so fast forward about a year ago, we finally decided to niche down and just focus on e-commerce brands because that's what we're really good at. And so the reason why I love to talk about the clothing company is that we test everything that we do in our agency with our clothing company. So it'll run through Little and Lively first before we try it on with any of our clients.
I love that.
So I think that I think it really gives us that empathy for the people that we work with, and really gives them that confidence that we actually know what we're doing.
Yeah. I really like that, Jordan, because you're using your company, Little and Lively, as sort of the guinea pig to your marketing tactics. And like you said, you better understand the needs of your e-commerce clients because you know that with your company, being a 7-figure company, like, what works and what doesn't work. And you've gone through the trials and errors. And so you can tell your clients at really an intimate level, like, hey, like, this is how it really works. And we know because we've gone through it ourselves. And so I think that's really impressive to practice what you preach as opposed to, really just be technical and teach someone something that you're not necessarily practicing.
Totally. And I mean, it all, I think one of the things that happens with a lot of agencies is they'll test on their client's dollar, right? Whereas we're actually just testing on our own dollar. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, generally our tests work.
Good.
At Little and Lively, we've had a return on ad spend of just over 7 over the past 5 years. So it's really like for us, that's way above industry average. And so we know that kind of whatever we're going to try with Little and Lively is generally going to work out. And if it doesn't, we're able to kill it within about a week.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I wanted to go back a little bit and how you talked about how you and your wife worked together, and then you decided to not necessarily part ways, but have someone in the middle, of that, and work with other people for the company. And it got me to reflect on the fact that my husband and I work together, and he's more of the visionary, like the one with the vision and the mission and like the dream, and he's also what we call our dog and pony show. And for me, I'm more so of the operations, like behind the scenes. I mean, I still get out there, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be talking, but I think if you can have that kind of relationship and still have a personal life, it could be deemed as success. But at the same time, I think it is good to create that space, between your spouse, if you are working together, because I think at least for us, it adds up sometimes.
Oh, totally. And I think for our staff, like, we have a fairly big staff, right? And they need to know who to go to, right? So we've got management in place, but after that, it's like, no, you don't come to Jordan for anything other than marketing related issues. And I think that was a big issue at first, right? It's like, well, who's the boss between the two of them, right? And then that was really difficult for both of us to sort of figure that out. And so when I started the agency, it was actually a really, really good transition. So I'm actually the CEO at the agency here. And so people know where to come. And we have totally separate offices and a wonderful, wonderful relationship, I think, because of that.
Good. Yeah, it's good. It's good to have boundaries, like couples don't have to be attached to the hip all the time.
It's true. They don't.
Yeah. So Jordan, I want to talk a little bit more about marketing. And, we were talking at the beginning how these are very interesting times. And so with that said, I'm wondering if maybe the marketing strategy you give to your clientele has shifted, or has it stayed the same?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, especially like we're talking in late October right now, and this has been a horrendous month for everybody. So I actually run an e-commerce mastermind as well. And within the mastermind, it's called the e-commerce executives mastermind. And within that mastermind, everybody is seeing, and these are big brands. These are like 8-figure brands for the most part that are in this mastermind, and they are seeing massive increases in cost per acquisition, huge decreases in return on ad spend, and it makes sense. And they're all American, right? So really makes sense right now because of the election and the amount of money that's getting pumped into Facebook ads and some YouTube as well. I mean, I think lots of Google's prices are going up right now as well. So this right now has been unprecedented for how expensive cost per acquisition is. Whereas before, when COVID first started, it was amazing because all these big brands were pulling out. Everyone was pulling out their budgets. And so us little guys could come in, and the cost per acquisition had dropped like substantially. Our clients were all incredibly happy up until October.
Wow.
And we know that November is going to be great on the e-commerce side. We really do. If I could talk about one strategy that I've seen work incredibly well.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's something that I haven't heard anybody else talking about, but I got it actually from a book called Contagious by Jonah Berger. Amazing book. And he talked about this brand that just couldn't sell. They just weren't really selling much. And then they started to password protect their website, and you had to get the password to enter the website. And then they would have launches once a week. And that was the only way. And they would sell out of every launch. So I thought, how can we implement this in our clothing company? And then maybe other companies as well, to try and get that FOMO and get that full experience, right? So we have a VIP group and we have an SMS list. So we treat our SMS list just like our VIP group. So we have a Facebook VIP group, SMS list. And when we're doing big launches, like we're doing one this Friday, we'll give them an hour or 2 hours early access to the website by giving them a password. So I'll walk you through what we did for our latest launch. We actually, in 24 hours of this launch, we did 250,000 of sales, and that was which is just crazy. I think it's crazy even just like on a large scale, right? Not even for like a smaller kind of company like ours. So what we did is we just built up the momentum. We let people know, like, hey, if you want early access, people are already trained that we will sell out of things, which I think is a really good thing, right? People are always like, why don't you have more inventory? Well, we want to sell out of all of our inventory because whatever's left over at the end of the day is really like a loss for us, right? And there's big companies out there like H&M. They'll actually throw away billions of dollars of clothing, right? Because it's gone through the cycle. And they have nowhere to put it. So for us, we really don't want to carry all of this massive amount of inventory because then we're not going to be profitable at the end of the day.
Right.
So we make sure to have maybe like a smaller inventory run at the beginning because we can be really fast with that inventory. So basically we open up the website, password protect it, give the password to our VIP group. And within that first 2 hours of that launch, while the website was password protected, we did 120,000 in sales.
Wow.
Yeah. So no Facebook ads, right?
That's crazy.
We did to build our list at first, but that day, and I think the subsequent entire week, we didn't use Facebook ads at all because we didn't need to, because we just kept continually having those sales. Now it took our staff like a month to catch up because it was like just massive amounts of sales throughout that time. It was like the 250 and then 50,000 and 40,000 and big days following that. And we haven't really looked back this season, especially. So it's really something that I think really adds to brands, right? When they're okay password protecting their site and they're not begging people to buy.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of turning things around a little bit, like, making them, it's a micro commitment, right? That they have to make.
It makes it feel really exclusive. It reminds me of a couple things, like when I was living in San Diego, California, and at Comic-Con, they would have like limited edition like figurines and stuff like that, and they would number each one, and so people would be in line for hours, and then when they open up, it's like they sell out really quickly. Or it also reminds me of this donut shop that used to be down the street, and it was like very exquisite donuts. It was like very fancy, well, donuts. And I remember they would only they'd open up at a specific time, and then they would shut down once everything like ran out. But it's usually within the first like 3-4 hours. And so that's sort of what it reminds me of, is really creating that FOMO, that sense of urgency. And I never really heard anyone talk about, providing a password to get access to the website to buy something. I can imagine that just kind of speeds that up even more, or creates that sense of urgency that much more.
Totally. Yeah. And one thing that we're transitioning to right now as well is a mobile app. So the mobile app is going to be all part of that VIP experience as well. Highly recommend, if there's any people out there in the e-com world listening to this, I highly recommend, testing out a mobile app, at least testing it to see if what that does with conversion rates, and as well as just customer stickiness, right? It's just another place for customers to come back.
Yeah. So Jordan, obviously you are very successful, and you've proven that with Little and Lively and some of the examples you've already given. For e-commerce business owners that are looking to work with you, how do you vet them? Like, how do they qualify to work with you?
Yeah, so we've got a really good process in place now, because we used to just be like, yeah, you want to come work with us? Cool, that's great. Right. We're now at the place where we're generally at capacity. Nice. So we're needing to hire more and more. So the way that it works for us is we first just have a quick phone call, and we see if it's going to be a fit at all, right? The biggest thing for us is, first of all, sales, right? Are you doing at least $1 million a year in sales, right? Because if not, it doesn't make sense to hire an agency as far as costs are concerned. Second, do we jive together, right? Having a 15-minute conversation is really good to tell, like, hey, is this actually going to be a fit? Because if it's not a fit on the first conversation, we're just not going to move forward from there. Right. And on both sides, right? Some personalities just don't work super well together. So we do a quick 15-minute call, and then what we do is a growth plan after that. And I think that that's really where we can bring a lot of value to potential clients. And so we'll go ahead and look at all of their paid advertising accounts of Facebook, Google, Amazon, and then we'll come up with a plan. We'll audit what they're doing, and then come up with a plan for the future of what we think that they could be doing based on certain return on ad spend, based on certain strategies and tactics. And then if everything looks good from there, then we actually work with people on a monthly sort of basis, where we're daily managing ads, coming up with new creative, coming up with new strategies for them to actually make more money and get more people onto their customer list. Awesome. I love that. I appreciate you sharing that, because I know for our listener who may be interested in working with you, it's important for them to know the importance of being able to jive well, and also having that minimum, like at least you're making $1 million in revenue before you hire an agency, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to hire us. And then just the process of working with you. So thank you for elaborating on that, Jordan. One more thing, is there anything else you want to let people know about mindful marketing? Just that we're obsessed with helping business owners become profitable, right? That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. When I was in the restaurant, the Taco Del Mar that I owned, and losing all of that money, life looks a lot different when you're losing money comparatively to when you're making money and you have money to spend on your staff and going on vacations and all of that. And that's really what we're obsessed with, right? We don't want to just run advertising for the sake of it. We want to run advertising so that people are actually profitable and can have a life again.
Right. It was funny because my husband is currently doing Facebook ads to promote his upcoming book. And yesterday he was feeling so unproductive, and yet his ads help him set up a call with a client. And he was like, I didn't do anything yesterday. And I was like, well, you didn't have to. Your ads were doing the work for you. So you were able, like, you don't have to work hard in order to work smart. You could just work smart. And part of that is advertising. So that's an example. And I think sometimes it's good for entrepreneurs to hear that, you're leveraging stuff like advertising, so you don't always have to do the laborious work of building exposure. Yes.
Totally. I think it's all about leverage, right? As business owners, and finding whatever those leverage points are. And at times you have to do the work, right? You have to put in the time. I talked about it on a podcast yesterday. You have to go through the Gary V phase, right? Hustle. But after that, you really do need to find leverage points
Mm.
because you're going to burn out and you're not going to have a life that you actually want to live, right? And that's like the life of an entrepreneur can be really, really amazing, especially when you find your purpose and when you start to become profitable. That to me is like the turning point.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like you have a lot of fun with what you do, Jordan.
I do. That's why I love coming on podcasts like this.
Yeah. Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Before we go, any parting advice do you want to share with our listeners who are entrepreneurs and small business owners?
Yeah, I would just say, invest in your paid media early, right? Once you figure out what that you've got an offer that people actually want, invest heavily in your paid media to start, but get them onto your list, right? Get them onto your SMS list, a VIP group, an email list, a messenger list, whatever it is, get them onto an owned list so that you can then talk to them.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I think that's good to know because there's a time and place for everything. You're not always going to have to do ads if you could really, build that list. So with that said, Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today from one podcaster to another, and I guess marketing agency to another. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. And to our listeners, once again, this is Jordan West. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of Mindful Marketing and Little and Lively, the clothing brand. You did mention that you're the CEO. Which company is that, just so I can clarify?
Oh, sorry. I'm the CEO of Mindful Marketing, but
okay.
The title doesn't really matter.
Okay. Well, in case anyone cares about the title, Jordan West is the CEO of Mindful Marketing. You can learn more about him and his company at mindfulmarketing.co. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.